Hey everyone, we're kicking off Island Forward Live. This is the first episode for 2020. Obviously, this is a new 10-year sprint, and I wanted to really kick it off by thinking about the fact that we have 10 more years to get to Jamaica 2030, right? Vision 2030 is the document that was put together many years ago for Jamaica. Actually, I have a copy of it here. But Vision 2030, really thick book, was put together, and it was Jamaica's national development plan. Not many countries have a national development plan. It was put together by government, opposition, the Planning Institute of Jamaica, the private sector contributed, a lot of entities contributed. And it said that it was planning for a secure and prosperous future. And I think that we can all agree that it's not going according to plan. What is your vision for Jamaica in 10 years' time? So I shared a video last week that I had created that showed what my vision was. And I'm only one person, and I want to get more input. I want people to share with me what their vision might include. When I shared that video that we posted on Jamaicans.com and I put all over social media, it included simple things that I think we can agree on, like safety. So we want a Jamaica that is safe and secure, which means we're dealing with crime, we're dealing with corruption. It needs to be a place that people want to live, right? I said Jamaica should be the place to live, work, and raise families. Safety is going to be our top one. I was envisioning a Jamaica with modern public transport, a more disciplined society, disciplined road users. I think we can all speak to the problems with the taxis, and not just the taxis. There are other drivers that are problematic as well. But just the road usage is a problem. So we would say at Jamaica that's better than that. We have a huge issue with public transport. A lot of money was spent on essentially the Kingston metropolitan area and then out to Spanish Town. But the rest of the country has been very much neglected in public transport. But we see infrastructure, so that's good. We want to see Jamaica with better infrastructure that would speed up things. We want doing business to be easier. Those are some of the things that I shared in the vision, right? We talked about modern agriculture. You look at farming in Brazil or Colombia or almost anywhere else that takes their farming seriously is modernized, it's mechanized. There is far more on the skills training standpoint. We have a predatory larceny problem in Jamaica. So another one was education. We do have to admit that Jamaica has an issue with education. Education reform is needed. And when you think about every single country that has had excellent economic growth and grown their GDP per capita, their gross domestic product, right? The value of their economy, it always comes back to investing in education. And I think we should all agree that education directly impacts crime. People who don't have opportunities to earn a good living, find a way to take care of their families. So we need to improve education. Right now, over 70% of tertiary educated Jamaicans actually migrate every single year. They leave the country. That's going to be a real problem over a 10-year period. That cannot happen between 2020 and 2030 for Jamaica if we expect things to get better. And so that was another one that I put in there. We talked about digital transformation and making sure that we have access to technology, and we need wide access, not just the elite or the 1% or the upper middle class, but we need everybody to get access to technology, access to training how to use that technology, right? Whether they're going to use it in a job they work in or to create their own jobs, right? But that whole ICT, information, communication and technology, is great. No longer would people have to depend on just, I have to show up in an office, work 9 to 5, and I can only sell to clients here. You can sell digital products and services around the world. I like to use the term instantly international. If you read Thomas Friedman's book, The World is Flat, the world isn't totally flat as yet, but let's be honest, the internet has changed the game. And you could be in Jamaica, never leave, working and generating real revenue, growing a business, paying taxes, contributing, raising your family, hiring staff and servicing people all over the world. So those are some of the things that I had in my vision. I want to get more feedback though. This is not about me talking at people or to people. I want to talk with people. I want this show to be more interactive. I appreciate Nikisha saying, that was true when we talked about education. So I'm going to go through some stats, and I'm going to compare Jamaica to two other countries, Colombia and Singapore. The Singapore one, I realize, is a sore point with some Jamaicans. Sometimes, I don't know if it's a majority, but I feel that Singapore is a reminder of what Jamaica could have been a bit since independence to now, and that is why it's such a sore point. So I was in Jamaica in November, and I was speaking as a keynote speaker for the JBDC, Jamaica Business Development Corporation, for their cohort in their accelerator program. This was the third year of them bringing in about 10 small businesses, 6-month accelerator program and longer to get these businesses really ready to scale faster, right? Incubator is for startups, accelerator is for existing companies to help them learn more things, whether it's better at your financing or your accounting or understanding how to raise capital, tweaking your margins, learning your numbers, management skills. Love accelerators. And I pointed out to the JBDC graduates that were there, and I started by asking them, right, this is a tale of two countries. And I was like, well, you need to tell me which one this is. Just let me give you some simple things, some facts. So number one, this country became a member of a federation in the late 1950s of states that were nearby, and then ended up no longer being a part of that federation, and then getting independence somewhere around 1962. And of course, everybody's looking at me wondering, which country is that? And I said, well, this country also used to be run by Britain. It was part of the British Empire, so British colonial background. And then this country has multiple languages, multiple ethnicities. And I asked everybody, which country is that? And of course, I puzzled, and they looked at me and they said, oh, both. I said, yes, both Singapore and Jamaica. I said, all right, let's move on. This country had less than 3 million people. This country also was next door to a very large country and large trading partner. And I said, and finally, this country has one of the largest natural harbors in the world. Which one am I talking about? And of course, everybody paused again, and they said, oh, both of them. It's both Jamaica and Singapore. It's both. So now they're seeing some of the similarities. And I said, well, now you're going to be able to guess which country this is. Let's talk about this one. I said, this country had a leader that decided, we are not going to tolerate any political corruption. We are not going to tolerate any government waste. We'll focus on efficiency. And we are going to invest in education first. And the reason this country had to do that was because this country did not have any land. Which country was that? And of course, everybody in the room immediately said, Singapore. From you mentioned corruption and no tolerance for it, that's obviously not Jamaica. It is funny and sad at the same time. Big up Henika for jumping in, and thanks Susie. Yes, positive and encouraging vision. I appreciate that. I'm sure you're going to share some ideas too. But those are some of the similarities and differences. So I do believe that we can learn from Singapore and other countries, Colombia, Costa Rica, Rwanda. It's not copy and paste. Jamaica is still different. We're not that unique, but we are different. But we have some advantages. So there's something I've been spending the last month studying. So Harvard actually has this amazing website, and I'll eventually share it, but it's called the Atlas of Economic Complexity. So they talk about countries. They go into countries. Well, the data goes into the countries and talks about here's a per capita income, here's your purchasing power parity, right? So even though Jamaicans might be earning on average $5,300 US a year, they can buy more than that, right? The cost of living is lower there than in the US. So you use purchasing power parity to figure out, essentially it's like the Big Mac index, how much would a Big Mac cost in Jamaica versus in the US, which we don't have McDonald's in Jamaica. But that is the idea, purchasing power parity. This atlas is amazing in my opinion because it visually breaks down what your exports look like and it talks about where your opportunities are. So they don't believe that when you're thinking, oh, we want to invest in something, we want our country to grow, right? We obviously know we need to export more. But what are you going to focus on? Governments, as much as we claim that governments shouldn't pick winners and losers, governments do spend some time on what to put their efforts into. So if a government decides that ICT, information communication technology, is important, they're going to put up another telecoms license, for example, and then have somebody bid on it. So that's how we got digital into Jamaica, which was great. It got us serious investment, disruption, a new company, brought down the cost of mobile phones, which then helped with business growth. So government can decide that we don't want to keep digging bauxite out of the ground or limestone or oil, right? You can decide that as a government. So governments play a role in where things go and they can help shape. If you provide tax discounts to tourism, to new hotels, or you provide tax breaks for call centers, BPO, you are sending a signal to the market that this is what we want. So this Harvard Atlas entity shows where the opportunities are, and they don't believe that you should just pick something out of the blue. They call them long jumps. What they want to do is look at the economy, figure out where are you exporting things, where are your skills already, and then what can you move up market into that is close to that. So they think you actually jump close. So an example with Jamaica is that we have a ton of bauxite, red dirt. Jamaica has been known for simply exporting the dirt and the alumina. We have to refine it and we export alumina, which is still dirt. But then we have to import finished aluminum cans to can the Coca-Cola, right? So we are sending out raw materials, importing finished products. That's usually not the best way, right? If you think about Congo or somewhere else that's exporting diamonds, just the raw uncut diamond, or cadmium and all these precious metals that need to go into the phone, and then they import the whole cell phone with a microchip. You want to be further up that market. So I like that idea of what are you doing now? What can you then move up? So the logical explanation in Jamaica is that bauxite turns into alumina. Don't export alumina, convert alumina to aluminum. And then you could export sheets of aluminum, or you could export finished aluminum products, which means we would do light manufacturing. We could export aluminum cans. Right? Now the more value you create, the more finished the product is the more you get for it. We know that. The person that grow the banana get the least amount of money. Chiquitas and Dole, who brand the banana and market it and put it in Publix and Walmart, they get the most money. You want to be as close to the end user as possible to get as much of the value that's created. And if you're in the UK, you know about your value added tax. That's what a VAT is. The point is to capture value where it is created. Well, Jamaica has never had an aluminum smelter. In order to create aluminum from alumina, you need a smelter, but it takes a lot of power, a lot of energy. And Jamaica has had a very high cost of energy. I mean, we're talking about 35 cents per kilowatt hour US. I'm here in Florida and we're paying 12, 11 cents, 10 cents per kilowatt hour. So 3.5 times more. So Jamaica has never been able to make it economically sound to build an aluminum smelter. No investor with a brain would do that. That has now changed, right? We've now shifted to LNG, so that's great. That's bringing down the cost. Jamaica has the largest solar power plant in the entire Caribbean now, English-speaking Caribbean. Plus we have Wigton, we have a wind farm. So we're bringing down the cost of power. The Chinese are now coming in and they bought one of the one of the bauxite plants, and they're building a light manufacturing city that's going to hire 60,000 people, mainly Jamaicans, and train them how to build light manufacturing aluminum products, light metals really. So that's interesting, that's great. So let's walk through some interesting stats with Jamaica, Singapore, and Colombia. I'll start with Colombia, and I'm reading them directly from the Atlas of Economic Complexity, which is done by Harvard. And it was really surprising because most of us don't think about Colombia, which is fairly close to Jamaica. We already have trade relationships, both legal and illegal. We know that, that's obvious. Colombia is a upper middle income country. So Jamaica is obviously lower middle income. Or are we probably just middle income? But It ranks as the 65th richest economy per capita out of 123, so 65. Colombia has 48.9 million people. So I've said to people, Jamaica has 2.95 million, 3 million people living in Jamaica. There are 2 cities in Colombia with at least that population or larger. Cities. But we can still learn from them. So Colombia ranks as the 62nd most complex country in the Economic Complexity Index ranking. And then they talk about their GDP per capita though is 6,375. And to compare that to Jamaica, Jamaica's GDP per capita is 5,060 US dollars. So actually pretty close. We're very close in per capita income. But their growth projections through to 2027 is 2.76%. So they're ranked 84th out of 133. Jamaica, however, growth projection is 1.16%, and we're ranked 128th out of that 133. So what are some of the things that we can do? Hey, watching from Bahamas, I love it. So again, pause right there. Michelle says Jamaica is too deep in debt to recover unless a power greater than herself would stoop down to assist. So I appreciate that opinion, Michelle, but let's remember this. Jamaica just has come out of an IMF agreement. Jamaica went from 147% debt to GDP ratio, so our debt was massive. It ballooned in the mid-90s. And this was because the government mainly had to actually dive in to save the financial sector and created FinSAC after that financial problem. Jamaica has brought our debt down to 97% debt to GDP ratio without any default on external debt, right? So we had 2 debt restructurings, the JDX and the NDX, the Jamaica Debt Exchange and National Debt Exchange. And that has caused interest rates to basically half. I mean, interest rates in Jamaica have collapsed. You've gone from a 15% mortgage being great to now 7 and 8% mortgages. So interest rates have come down. They've refinanced debt, so the debt on the books now is cheaper to manage. Right? Jamaica used to spend about 55 cents per dollar that was taken in just to pay interest. It doesn't happen anymore. In the next 3 years, Jamaica's debt to GDP ratio is going to drop to 60%. And that is thanks to the IMF deal, EPOC, which is the Economic Program and Oversight Committee that worked on the private sector side with the government. And then actually passing legislation now with an Economic Oversight Committee that's separate from government. So Jamaica doesn't have a debt problem. Jamaica is not too deep in debt. They were able to double the national security budget. So let's say, provided they do the right strategy, it can work. But debt is now no longer the excuse for Jamaica. The problem Jamaica is going to have is lack of vision. That is where our biggest problem are. Debt is not an issue. We actually have a surplus, right? Jamaica had to generate a primary surplus of roughly 7% per year under the IMF deal, this is rough. So this is saying that when you take in money, you need to set aside 7% before you pay any debt, anything. So that's Greece. Their target was like 1.5% primary surplus, and they didn't even meet that. So you don't want to worry about Jamaica versus Greece. Like Greece is the failing example of what to do when you have a debt problem, a debt crisis. Jamaica is now the case study that the IMF runs around everywhere saying, here's how you do it, learn from Jamaica. It so happens we also ended up having the stock exchange doing well. So I see Gregory saying Jamaica or JLP. No, Jamaica. This is not a JLP thing. This is both parties did this, right? The PNP signed the deal with the IMF and established the Economic Program Oversight Committee, worked with the opposition to put together economic plans. JLP won and JLP continued the same plans and have now continued to do some others. So this is something that went across both parties. I don't think it matters in the past which party. We can't talk about going forward, things can change, but so far it has gone across both administrations, and you've gotten public sector support and private sector support. So when we dive into Colombia, it is really interesting that they do this visual graph now that breaks down where your exports and your imports are going, like who are your trading partners. So in Colombia, their top 3 export destinations, the US, 28.34%, China, 8.24%, and obviously Panama, 5.76%. And I think that's mainly because of the Panama Canal, which is nearby. When they break down the export basket, though, it was fascinating to me. Total exports for Colombia is 53.2 billion US dollars. That's massive. Jamaica, 4.73 billion. Colombia actually has a trade deficit, but not that bad. Their imports are 58 billion. So export 53, import 58. $5 billion trade deficit. Jamaica exports 4.7, and then we have a massive current account deficit. So Jamaica is importing 8 billion. In 2017, Jamaica imported $7.99 billion worth of goods and services. Right? Basically double. So the question is, where are these guys exporting? What does, they have this interesting graph that breaks down the percentages of the exports for Colombia. So I was surprised. I didn't actually know this is how Colombia is, but 27.6% is petroleum, oils and crude, so oil. 15% is coal, so they have basically digging stuff out of the ground. That's not really sustainable. 9.1% is travel and tourism for Colombia in terms of their exports, their earnings. ICT, information, communication and technology, is 3.25%. And that includes the call centers that are in Colombia. And they do a lot of overseas tech work as well. Transport, 3.22%. Coffee, everybody that thinks about Colombia or Jamaica, coffee is one of the top things we think about. Coffee is 4.95%. So that gives you an idea of some of the growth areas that they had used and seen. Well, when you look at Jamaica now, Jamaica, 59.35% of our exports for products and services is travel and tourism. ICT is 10.26%, transport is 4.55%, aluminum oxide, right, bauxite is 11.75%. And then I have to zoom in to find coffee. We have alcohol, we have beer. And coffee, it don't even show up. They don't even label coffee. They have spirits, alcohol for 1.92%, beer for 0.64%. So for me, that says a lot. It means, so the US buys most of coffee. And that, if Jamaican coffee is a well-known brand, but it's expensive, you realize that not only have coffee prices been going down, and we don't control that. Coffee itself is a commodity, but then you can separate your brand, high value, right? Commodities doesn't prevent you from charging a higher price. Blue Mountain coffee is one of the most expensive coffees in the world. But, yes, Michelle said, Jamaica has so many products that could be exported to increase their revenue. Cannabis is on the rise and used overseas. Let me click see more. Tourism industry is being affected by the crime influence, unfortunately. Wait, so Michelle, I'm going to challenge you on that one. If tourism was being negatively affected by crime, then why would we have record stopovers last year? Like, we have had the most tourists visit Jamaica in 2019 in the history of Jamaican tourism. Cruise shipping stopovers are down, and that's because of the Cayman problem. But overall, we actually have more tourists visiting Jamaica last year, and we earned more money from tourism last year than ever before. So I think we've been able to compartmentalize the crime issue. Now we're talking about coffee. Not just China. Japan is actually the largest purchaser of Jamaican coffee. China is just now getting into coffee. The Prime Minister was recently in China. They're going to work on some stuff there. But Japan has actually been there. So here's the problem though, Gregory. We know that we're inefficient. Jamaica exports 10 times less of basically everything today than it did in the 1940s and 50s. So whether it's banana, we know that's collapsed. Sugar, that's collapsed. Coffee, that is collapsed. If you name it and it's a product grown in the ground, Jamaica is exporting approximately 10 times less. And why is that? It's because we have not mechanized, we have not modernized, we have not trained and upskilled the farmers. We're still using machete and these things, and it's partly because they don't want to lose jobs. We had the sugar company of Jamaica that was government run. We lost 20 billion Jamaican dollars, or so much debt was on there when they sold it, right? Sold some to the Chinese, sold some to local Jamaicans. And they still had to close them because they didn't want to modernize the factory. I mean, at point blank, I was told this about the sugar. They didn't shut down the sugar companies. They sold the sugar companies. 5 of them, 3 sold to Complant, 2 sold to Jamaican-owned entities. You look at Seprod recently just shut down the Duckinfield factory near Goodyear, right, in St. Thomas. And they pointed out, they tried for 3 years, they couldn't get it to work, they're going to try and do something else. Well, let's just think about this logically. The sugar industry in Jamaica was protected for 50 plus years because we got special treatment with ACP countries. African, Caribbean and Pacific countries had special treatment going into Europe and the UK, right? That's exactly what it was. So we got prices much higher for our sugar than pretty much anything else. When you have prices that are higher than market prices, you have this protection, you have no incentive to be efficient. But that was taken away. It's the same thing happened with our bananas when Bill Clinton took the US to the WTO versus Jamaica on behalf of Dole and Chiquitas, who do not grow bananas in the United States, by the way. And they won. So if you lose the protection and you've never been operating to sell at this low price, you've always at this high price, you know what happened? Competition kill you. Because we have not focused on becoming efficient. We have not modernized. I was told by some government ministers the reason they didn't modernize the sugar factories is because if people lose jobs. If you mechanize some of the harvesting or the planting and so on, people will lose jobs. And those jobs are people who vote. So they cared more about winning the next election than positioning Jamaica for long-term growth. That's the vision problem we have in Jamaica. I think we can all agree with that. We have too many people focused on short-term winning the next election and thinking 10 years, 20 years, 50 years down the line, what is Jamaica going to look like? So Gregory says we can't feed ourselves with our own products. That's 100% true. This is something from Michael Manley was saying, grow what you eat what you grow. They've brought it back again now. And that's crazy. We import so many products, whether it's for the hotels or for ourselves. We could actually be growing them, but we need to be more efficient. And I see some stuff happening there in Jamaica, thankfully. So we're going to be seeing some investments and hearing more about them. And trust me, you're going to be excited about the updated agro parks. These are 400 acres, 2,000 acres, training local Jamaicans, bringing some of these farmers in there. So it's no longer you and your little 2 acre, 1 acre, 5 acre plot, but much larger farms that more like what we see here in the US. I see in Del Chandler saying, just like I thought, might say, you guys overlook crime because it doesn't affect you uptowners, but it will eventually reach uptown. So, oh geez, Michelle saying mangoes, would that export make a dent? Yes. But again, we need to be more efficient. I mean, you know how much people pay for mangoes. Well, you know what would actually make a bigger dent? Avocado, pear. Look at all these American millennials talking about they want pear on them toast, avocado. We there's an opportunity there as well. So yes, mangoes, avocados, a lot of these. Gregory says cane cutters replaced by harvesters. Exactly. We need to be able to train and upskill these people to do other things, right? Cane can give us bagasse. Bagasse can be turned into energy. Who's going to run that? Who's going to help transform that? So we need to stop thinking that all ways are required and don't think about the new opportunities. There are other opportunities that can leverage their skills. And we shouldn't think that these people have no sense. Right? They can learn new skills. Some of them are older, and so we have to figure that out. But when you think about competition, I bring up India as a really good example. Tata Steel is a case study I did with MBA. Tata had the steel company, and India's steel industry was completely government managed, not government run. The government told them how much steel to make each year, told them the price of the steel. They had to give up those controls, and there was not going to be overseas competition. India's steel was like 4 times more expensive than the steel they would be importing. So these businesses were going to collapse. And so Tata Steel had to come up with a way to become efficient very quickly. And they did it in a way that would reduce the impact on their workers. So they needed to cut the workforce by 50% They had to get rid of the rules that said if you were the son of a politician, you automatically got a job. Like, no, lifetime employment, couldn't have that anymore. Your child automatically gets there, couldn't. So they actually gave them about 3 years transition, paid them cash to no longer work. They bought out the workers, gave them 3 years of healthcare, housing, and education. And so they were able to then become more efficient. They had too many people and they needed to modernize. Jamaica has to do the same thing. We need to modernize, we need to be more efficient, and we need to stop thinking about the next election and thinking about the next generation. I think we can agree with that one. So it was pointed out here, the top 3 export destinations for Jamaica are the United States, obviously, 27.13%, Germany at 11.78%, and Canada at 10.19%. The Germany one definitely did surprise me. I got into an argument 2 days ago with somebody that called me Monday because we talked about where Jamaica is earning money, right? The 3 largest foreign exchange sources for Jamaica are, as we know, number 1, tourism. That's where we get a lot of foreign currency. Number 2, remittances from the diaspora. And number 3 is bauxite. But just as you can see in this presentation, they don't count remittances as an export. A remittance is not an export. A remittance is money that we are sending back to help our family and friends, not because of the country. They could be in Rwanda, we'd still send them money. It's two different things, right? Western Union gets us foreign exchange, but that's not something we were selling. It's kind of hard to grow that. So Harvard doesn't count that as an export in your export basket of things you can grow. So we need to separate remittances from things Jamaica itself can focus on. I see in my case, if you had an 8-acre farm, what would you suggest growing? I would actually grow hemp, not marijuana, right? Marijuana has a high THC content. You have to go through a whole lot of things to get that done and get it to market. But hemp, if you look at Canada, hemp is legal, right? Hemp is different from marijuana because it's low THC. So you can make hemp rope, hemp concrete, which is hempcrete. They're making jeans and like cotton from hemp. I think hemp is the one I would grow because you grow it in Jamaica and then sell it to Canada. And there's an article that came out, I believe it was November. The first shipment of hemp came from Jamaica and then into Canada. So that's what I would do as one option for 8 acres. If you want to do that cash crop instead, you could be looking at something like peppers or vegetables, fresh vegetables that need to be sold into the hotels, Sandals and so on. Grace Kennedy needs peppers for pepper mash. I mean, kind of know Jamaica for pepper. So that's another one, is the pepper side of things, which is a good export market to China. And then the third one is my personal favorite, which for some reason we don't really talk about that much, but cotton, Sea Island cotton. On my 8-acre farm, to be honest, is what I really would grow eventually. It would take a little while to have the money to do it. But if we think about cotton, Egyptian cotton, people keep saying Egyptian cotton is the most expensive cotton in the world, right? And Egyptian cotton is somewhere in the $4 range a bale, $3, $4 a bale. But then Sea Island cotton is better than Egyptian cotton. It can only grow in the southeast USA, Jamaica, and Barbados pretty much because of the soil and the atmospheric content. So Jamaica should be the largest producer of Sea Island cotton. Sea Island cotton is $10 to $12 a bale. So Sea Island cotton would cost 3 to 4 times more than Egyptian cotton. This is where you'd be selling to the LVMHs of the world, right? This is Louis Vuitton. I mean, the high-end guys would use your cotton in their shirts, in their dresses, in their suits. I would want to do a Sea Island cotton, especially with James Bond and all this stuff. Man, work out a deal with GoldenEye, and James Bond should be wearing a Sea Island cotton shirt made in Jamaica, from Jamaican cotton. So that's how I think. That's how my brain works. And Gregory says, we have no shipping company to get our product moved. Yeah, but at the same time, Gregory, we don't have to do everything, right? Singapore don't own the shipping companies. You want the shipping companies to be based there. So a lot of us don't know as Jamaicans that based downtown, the International Seabed Authority for the UN is based in Jamaica. And that's where they have their annual conference. Right? Jamaica has the 7th largest naturally protected harbour in the world. We're now dredging the harbour to go into phase 3, but we now already have 2 phases. Strawberry, I never see anybody growing strawberry in Jamaica yet, so I'd have to look at that. I know strawberry from Driscoll Farms here in the US, massive. I don't know what weather and soil strawberry needs, so I'd have to check on that one. But when we think about shipping and logistics for Jamaica, we have one of the 3 largest lines based in Jamaica. You have Maersk down there as well, because if you come out of the Panama Canal and you close your eyes, you run aground in Kingston Harbour. You literally run aground in Jamaica. So Jamaica is one of the only ports in the Western Hemisphere that can accept post-Panamax ships. So post-Panamax means that they widen the Panama Canal, and instead of 10,000 TEUs, 20-foot containers, 20-foot equivalent unit, TEU, instead of say 5,000 or 10,000 fit in the ship, the ship can fit 15,000, 20,000. So they call them post-Panamax vessels. And Jamaica's harbour can accept some of them now, and they're deepening it so that they can actually accept more of them. So they come to us because they have to take them off the ship, put it on smaller ships, call it break-in bulk, to then go to Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Jacksonville, Bahamas, because they can't accept these ships. So Jamaica itself doesn't have to have the shipping company. Every shipping route in the Western Hemisphere passes through the Panama Canal to Jamaica and then goes to the southeast of the United States. So we already have shipping traffic. The problem is these tend not to be stopping in Jamaica to fill it with that many goods because we're not exporting enough. So we need to make sure that the ships are stopping in Jamaica, drop off something we need, preferably raw material, We use that raw material to produce something, not necessarily a complete finished good, but partially finished good. Stick it back in the ship, in the container, and then the container goes on its way. And we want to add some vegetables. To me, that's a no-brainer. There are companies in Jamaica right now that worked with the authorities in the US from a food handling standpoint to get certified. So you can package, whether it's your ackee or your cabbage, you can package it in Jamaica. It meets the US FDA certifications and then you ship it. But let's think about this. We have an efficiency problem. So our costs, our price are higher than everybody else. If you want the banana from Jamaica, it costs more. But you know what? Because it costs so much to grow stuff in Jamaica, we don't use a lot of fertilizer. If you want organic food, and we're already known for ITAL food, right? Jamaica, Rasta, ITAL, that's a worldwide brand. That's a globally recognized brand. Why wouldn't you focus on having Jamaica become the English-speaking Caribbean hub for organic food? Fertilizer costs money to put it in there. We don't even need fertilizer. Our ground is that good, right? Singapore don't have land. Singapore imports water and fresh fruits. Jamaica is the land of wood and water. To me, my vision, let's see how many of you agree, but my vision would be organic foods cost more. Because we go to Whole Foods, right? Whole paycheck. Well, that's what we should be doing. We should be focused on building out an organic agricultural industry. Since we already have agriculture down, we have land, we can't afford the inputs, right? We'd have to import fertilizer. There's only one fertilizer company in Jamaica that makes fertilizer, and they can't supply the whole market. So we import fertilizer into Jamaica. If we're not importing fertilizer, we save US dollars, we reduce imports. We're now selling organic food, which we're charging 2 to 3 times more. So you should eat our banana rather than Chiquita's banana. I mean, how many of you watching this ever try peel a Chiquita's banana? You basically need a knife to slice off the stem of the banana. Like, let's be honest. Which Jamaican banana you ever have a problem opening? Like, real talk. Man say, I agree with you with that we can be that in the Caribbean. So Gregory's saying we earn from red stripe beer, but sorrel beer would earn more. Why can't we get it out of JA? Cassava could be booming. So I love that question because I read an article recently, the Gleaner, which was disappointed. But so red stripe is committed to the cassava push, but it's actually not profitable. They set up this whole cassava farming thing. They're sticking it into beer. Not profitable yet. So I think we need more scale. But I agree that cassava should be booming. There are more uses for cassava, but it's not at scale. So we need to increase scale, and we can't only depend on red stripe. In terms of why red stripe sorrel isn't being exported more, that's a really good question, and we need to go and ask somebody at red stripe that one. So I love that, Gregory. That's a really good one. Michelle saying callaloo industry could overtake romaine lettuce in the US. Not sure of the comparative health benefits, but I'm sure the product will be well received as an export item. So that's another good one. If you think about the native market, well, fine, Hispanic market, the Caribbean market, but we're thinking about the ethnic foods market. I think callaloo could be an interesting one. I don't know about the difference, but as you said that, Michelle, how I immediately thought about romaine lettuce versus callaloo is that we keep getting these scares with lettuce because some problem, right? I mean, I have to throw away the lettuce. There's some problem with lettuce. Like, we've had so many over the last 5 years where some lettuce problem. So I don't know if you'd have the same problem with callaloo. I think that is something that we definitely should be looking at. I like that one, Michelle. But that's exactly what we need to do. We need to be looking at where are the growth opportunities in agriculture. I think it starts with organic foods. We already are growing these fruits and vegetables in Jamaica with limited use of pesticides and pesticides. I kept saying fertilizer, but limited use of pesticides. We can't afford it. It costs US dollars to import the pesticides. So what can we do to move up market without doing too much drastically different? Do it at scale, and then we can go from there. So I love those. But let me look at Singapore then, which was just scary to look at. What is their economy exporting, and could we consider anything from there? Are any of them close enough to what we're already doing that we can benefit from? And so Singapore's export basket in 2017, and this is a country of 5 million people, right? Jamaica is 3 million, and Singapore didn't always have 5 million. They have like 2 million expats. They have all these foreigners that came in to also work with them. Callaloo can be exported fresh or frozen, options to consider. I see tin callaloo everywhere. The marketing is the key. You have to market the callaloo to the same way avocado toast get it marketed probably. But so Singapore, China, Hong Kong, Malaysia, they're next door neighbors, which makes sense. So Jamaica has the US, Canada, and obviously all of Latin America. Central and South America are huge markets. But Singapore, ICT is 13.32%. So Jamaica is at 10, these guys are at 13.32%. So we have call centers, you can move up market, whether it's telemedicine, telehealth, data entry, there's more that we can do. So I like that one. Electronic integrated circuit. Jamaica is a ways off from that, right? We're not going to be fashioning any chips in Jamaica anytime soon. So I don't think that's a long jump, a leapfrog, not one that is nearby. But they talk about transport, so that's the logistics part. We are right there already and we can scale that up. Insurance and finance is 5.54%, tourism is 3.75%. So we talk about insurance and finance, 5.54%. And that is the one that's personally close to me because of my background. There were some efforts by Don Webby at Grace Kennedy when he was seconded to the Ministry of Finance to turn Jamaica into an international financial center in the Caribbean. And let's think about this. When you think of Cayman, when you think of Bahamas, and you think of Bermuda, those are the things you think about. Cayman, you think about an international financial center, hedge funds, private equity funds registered there, trusts. Bahamas, also known for the same kind of finance things. Bermuda, insurance. Which stock market in the Caribbean is the most active one, the biggest one, and the most liquid? It's not Trinidad, it's not Barbados, it's Jamaica. If you have a Caribbean company in English-speaking Caribbean and you want to go public and raise money, you come to the Jamaica Stock Exchange. So Jamaica is passing some rules now to make it easier to set up certain kinds of entities that we don't allow right now, and they're allowed in Cayman and in Bahamas. These are limited partnerships, LPs. So I think that is a massive growth opportunity. Jamaica is very well positioned for international finance, very well known and becoming more well known because of the performance of the stock exchange. Cayman is right around the corner, right next door. And there are so many Jamaicans in Cayman who would work back and forth between the two. They don't have to live in Jamaica just yet because crime is a problem. They're not coming back, but they can also work hand in hand. And I know right now, our lawyer, for example, in Jamaica, has a counterpart in Cayman that would set up the things. We are doing a GP-LP structure. So they work with them. That is an opportunity on the finance side, and we can learn from that and see what Singapore did and made themselves a core link in the chain of that financing for entities in the southeast of Asia. And Jamaica could be that in the English-speaking Caribbean. I see Michelle saying maybe we could send our students to those countries to be educated in their economic ways. Exactly. So I won't talk about which family member went, but a family member that works within the government of Jamaica in the public sector, not elected, was sent to Singapore to go and learn how they were doing their public sector trading and working to become more efficient. And the Jamaican government sent a number of people there. So I think that it was smart to learn from Samsung. Samsung actually used to do this. Samsung would hire their youngest people, right? They hire you out of college, send you for 1 year to another country to go and learn that country, learn the economy, learn the culture. So when Samsung wanted to enter Russia, for example, they were able to call on the young associate that had spent 2 years in Russia to help them launch their phone or their products and services in Russia. So they did them everywhere. Send them to the US, send them to Brazil, China. That is smart. You would think like a Grace Kennedy or some of these entities. And the government would send people to some of these countries. So there is an exchange, I know, with Singapore. I would love to see Estonia. We're talking about digital transformation and we want to reduce paper because I know if you're in the diaspora, you can relate to me how inefficient Jamaica is. Jeez, I'm inefficient and too much paper. Estonia is like the model digital economy. So yes, seconding people to somewhere for 6 months to a year to learn best practices from somewhere else and bring it back and then use a train-the-trainer model where they then teach everybody else what they learn would be brilliant. Whichever candidate runs and says that, I think most Jamaicans will be like, yeah man, we like that idea. Bring back best practices so we can level up Jamaica because Jamaica deserves to be better than it is. Let's just start with that. For the location on earth where Jamaica happens to be, for all of the commerce that passes by us, not goes through us, passes by us, for Jamaica's brand recognition, we should actually be the hub in the Western Hemisphere. We should be the Singapore of the Western Hemisphere. And eventually Singapore should be saying, we are the Jamaica of the Eastern Hemisphere. Like that. That's the way it should be. And one of the most interesting things that I didn't see in whether it's Colombia, Singapore, or Jamaica for exports, and I think this is one that we are going to agree, is that Jamaica's number one export should actually be our culture. Jamaica's number one export should be our culture. When you think about our music and the impact our music has had on the world, when other people take our stories and turn them into films like Cool Runnings, money is made, but most of that money doesn't come back to Jamaica. Right? Less than 25% of the money that is made in dancehall and reggae come back to Jamaica. Straight up. Everybody, go anywhere. I lived in Germany last year, the year before last year, for 3 months. Every time I'd open my mouth, people would say, oh, you're Jamaican? Usain Bolt, Bob Marley, and weed. Those are the 3 things, always in that order. Usain Bolt, Bob Marley, weed. Anywhere in the world you go and go, whether it's them going to talk about Peter Tosh, Jimmy Cliff, Bob Marley, Bunny Wailer, Sean Paul, Shaggy, Beanie Man, calling names. Tessan after she won, the voice, like, we're big. Brand Jamaica is known. Brand Jamaica don't make any money though, because we haven't defined what Brand Jamaica is. We haven't protected Brand Jamaica, and we haven't professionalized the creation of our arts and culture. Like, why are we not having more artists being developed in Jamaica that are then selling through a Jamaican-owned record label into the US, Canada, Europe, the streaming services on Spotify? That money not coming back to Jamaica. That money sitting over here with the US labels and the UK labels that are signing our artists. Right? That's the difference with what Chris Blackwell did with Island Records. Chris Blackwell signed Bob Marley and the Wailers. Chris Blackwell, based in Jamaica, Jamaican, and Island Records blew up with these people. And because of that, we got all these foreign artists, and not foreign artists wanting our music, and we also got foreign labels signing a whole bunch of Jamaicans in the 80s and 90s. Even Richard Branson's Virgin Records signed Jamaican artists, right? So clearly, when it took off, it in demand. You listen to Afrobeats right now, in the Jamaica they're using, you look at reggaeton. Reggaeton uses one rhythm in Jamaica. One rhythm. That was it. They were using one rhythm. So why couldn't we have been bigger than reggaeton? How the hell is reggaeton bigger than dancehall music? And it's because they professionalize it, market the hell out of it. We have not done that. So there's an opportunity there on the culture side to really get going. And I want to see some entrepreneurs do that. So, man, Michelle, I love how you're active. Jordan, thank you for saying that. Makes sense. Michelle saying it's not that Jamaica is technologically stagnant, but they need the funds to invest in computerized equipment, etc. We are backward in that capacity. So many companies still operate stifled under the technology advancement. So I'm going to agree with it there, probably 90%, in the sense that some people still don't believe me to this day that it is cheaper for me to get 100 megabits per second internet in Jamaica than for me to get it here in Orlando, Florida. So they're surprised. That is really interesting. So Jamaica has access to technology, to internet, really cheap, but we're lacking on the computer literacy part, the training. And that's partly because we're lacking on the numeracy and literacy part. If you look at Jamaica's math scores and English scores in fifth form, in CSEC, right? This is the fifth form exams. We're performing below 50%. So if the people don't know how to read English properly and do math well, how are they going to go into the STEM field, sciences, and obviously the computer science part? So we need to train, we need to upskill our workers, we need to train our workers. I sit on the board of an entity called the Caribbean School of Data, which is housed at UWI, Mona School of Business, and is funded by Google for the next 3 years. And we're teaching data literacy. So not just computer literacy, but we're teaching data literacy, how to understand how to use data for businesses and for analysis and the job opportunities in there. And we want to educate roughly 1,500 people across 6 Caribbean countries from marginalized groups. We need to scale it up, but that's exactly what it is. The raw material is there. That's the people, the labor, right? That's a capital, right? We call it labor capital. But that exists. Human capital is there. We need to mold it, upskill them, refine it, and get them into new opportunities. Well, let me tell you something, and I think we know, if you go to school for this job, you're molded, and then you come out and no job there, you're going to feel like somebody rip you off. So we need to do both. We need to work on getting the human capital up to the next level, while simultaneously bringing industry, bringing the companies there. So that way, when you graduate, you have the job. If they graduate before the jobs are there, you're going to have all these people saying, it's not true, don't matter, go to school, no job waiting on you, don't waste your time, which then ripples down. So you need to get the companies there. And in fact, you want to partner with the companies. So we think about technology. I think, Michelle, you should check out Costa Rica if you don't know that example. But Costa Rica is a great example of how they use ICT to help grow their country, right? Ecotourism is a big thing there, and then the ICT side was another one. Costa Rica decided that they were going to go after companies like Intel. They wanted to be doing the chip, not the manufacturing part, but the assembly in Costa Rica. And so they worked with Intel to create a program to teach these people, so this is a year to 2 years, to give them the proper skills and situate a factory in Costa Rica. So Intel designed the program because Intel know what they need. They know the skills. So when the industry collaborates the design, we do that with Heart in Jamaica. They then created these people that could work in the Intel chip factory launch. Tons of qualified people were able to get hired. Because Intel had a chip factory there, other companies came and situated themselves around the Intel factory. So now you have a hub, essentially a little city, all built around that. And that is something that you would look at and say, oh, that's why Dell is in Costa Rica. Because Intel went there first, designed a program in the government, hired people. Oh, well, if my supply is already there with massive stuff, I should situate some of my services there, my factories, to then also take the chip, stick it in the computer, and scale. So that is what you need to do. You need to get one person who provides a component, a necessary component within that product, get them into the country. And then their people that they supply will also then come there because they want to be closer. They want just-in-time manufacturing. They want to reduce the lead time for shipping, so it don't have to be China. Is here, and we are friendly to US and Canada. So I think that's great. Pansy's asking, why is Jamaica not exporting? I assume you mean Yang, the bikes? That's what you mean, Pansy? I'm not sure which one you mean. Because Jamaica doesn't manufacture any automotive things, so no bike or no car. So I'm not sure what you mean by Yang, unless you actually mean the bikes, which we are importing those bikes from China, pretty much. So. But those are some of the things that I look at. We have 5 more minutes. I said 1 hour. I want to try and keep it to 1 hour, and then we can engage again next week. But that is a vision for Jamaica. We need a Jamaica that is safe. So that's crime and corruption. We need a Jamaica that's efficient. Boy, we know that. This is where the justice system need to be efficient. The public sector need to be efficient. Businesses need to be efficient. It should be easier to do business in Jamaica. I see us kind of floundering in the doing business index rankings somewhere in the high 60s. So we need a Jamaica that is easy for transport. We need health, right? We need a healthy Jamaica. There's a lot of investment going on in the health sector, but we need more. And we need a Jamaica that is clean. And everyone's that fly don't go and talk about that, like clean. We need to work on that, the garbage collection, the cleanliness of the people, the recycling. Jamaica needs to care about energy far more. And so always a plant that they grow wild to use perfume. Never heard of that plant. I'd have to go Google that one. Definitely, that's an interesting one. Pansy, you should post something about that or message me about that one. Michelle, I'm sure there's no manufacturing company that produce computer parts and accessories. No. Jamaica is not a manufacturing hub, and remember why. Trinidad is a manufacturing hub of the English-speaking Caribbean because Trinidad has low energy. Manufacturing costs money. If you're going to run the factory and the machines, it's going to cost you electricity. If electricity costs you 37 cents per kilowatt hour in Jamaica and costs you 8 cents per kilowatt hour in Trinidad, why would you manufacture in Jamaica? Like, you're going to go to Trinidad and run the printing presses to print the books that we all use in school across the Caribbean for CXC and manufacture physical things to sell because the cost of energy is a massive part of your input cost. That's crazy. And every time the dollar move, the electricity price go up because we're burning oil. Jamaica has no reduced amount of oil we burn to generate electricity. So manufacturing can now start to pick up in Jamaica. But as long as the cost of electricity was so high, there was no sense in Jamaica versus Trinidad. Go at Trinidad. That never made any sense. So, but that's exactly what is going to come next. We should have people manufacturing computer parts and accessories in Jamaica. Why wouldn't Xiaomi come from China, establish a factory in Jamaica to do some of their smartphones to then sell into the Latin American market? Yes, they could go into Colombia and so on, but you're shipping through Panama Canal, drop off in Jamaica. We have tons of land, low expenses in terms of people, right? Our people cost less for now. But you could do that. We could actually do assembly first and then can move to manufacturing. I saw a few years ago, about 3 years ago, a friend of mine helped to fund a company in Haiti, which is manufacturing tablets, Android tablets in Jamaica. They manufacture the tablets. So they get the parts made in parts of Latin America, China, Singapore, Taiwan, and so on. Ship all the parts to Haiti and hire local Haitians to then assemble this actual Android tablet that then goes and gets used in schools across Haiti. I think that is something that could actually work in Jamaica. We need to do it efficiently, we need to worry about security, but I agree 100%. You start with assembly and then you move to manufacturing. I've been watching this documentary about South Korea to understand how the hell South Korea became what it is. Because South Korea went through a war, right? South Korea versus North Korea, the Korean War, this is the 1950s. Everything bombed out. When you see the pictures from 1957, 1959, you just wonder how a country comes back from that, right? Rwanda had a civil war against each other, but they didn't have a bombing war. Like, they didn't blow up entire bridges and schools and government buildings. The first thing was that the South Koreans, the parents focused on education. So even though the schools were blown up and the war was done, they sent their children to school anyway, every day. These kids got an education, they prioritized education. Singapore, South Korea then decided, we looked at Singapore, here's where we want to now focus on. The government said we want to get into manufacturing, we want to get into IT and steer the people that way. And then what they did was they started by copying, which is exactly what Taiwan started with and China. They copied refrigerators, for example, from GE. They blatantly stole and copied and started manufacturing. And then they were able to then eventually get better and then design their own stuff. So Samsung is a local South Korean company. LG is a local South Korean company. Kia is a Korean company. They all started by copying somebody first. Learning, and then shifting over to doing their own original stuff. I think Jamaica has to follow that same model of pick an area you want to go, create our products, get better, now that the cost of energy is coming down, and then we can create some Jamaican original products. I don't think it's possible for us to compete with South Korea. We don't have as many people, right? Scale is going to be an issue, but we have a lot of land and there's still key things that we can do, and we could supply a large enough market if we're doing a just-in-time model. I mean, we have so much land that is available. And again, we also need to have a Jamaica that cares about the environment, because unlike a lot of other countries, Jamaica is an island. So if the sea level keep rising, the beach is going to be washed away, which means how tourism going to work. Like, tourists come for beach, and if there's no sand, tourists going to stop coming and go somewhere else. And if that water level rises as well, we're going to have a problem in places like Montego Bay and obviously Old Harbour, Kingston. So we need to care a lot more about our environment. So paving over fertile land in Jamaica to build a house, no, we need to be growing products, organic agriculture preferably. We need to be looking at manufacturing and doing more things there, the factories and so on. But we don't want coal or more digging of limestone or more bauxite like that. Those things only have a certain shelf life. Like, eventually they run out. Let's focus on stuff that don't run out. They're renewable, right? It could be. So those are some of the ideas that I have thought about and spent time reading about. Those are some of the countries that I have looked at, and I encourage you guys to look at them. So Colombia, Singapore, and South Korea especially. Rwanda is an interesting one because they went through this extreme civil war between two factions, and they've now become one of the fastest growing countries in sub-Saharan Africa. I think we can learn some lessons about, I was going to say anger management, discipline. To come back, I thought South Africa with their apartheid and Truth and Reconciliation Commission was amazing, but Why? Rwanda and their forgiveness is some next level things. I mean, in Jamaica, you step on a man foot at the party and you probably get a rock stone in your head. You don't know what's going to happen. So clearly, we need some cultural shift as well to get us to be as airy as the tourists say we are, right? I love when Americans and Canadians talk about, oh, Jamaicans are so nice and so laid back. And I'm like, yeah, to the tourists. But amongst each other, sometimes it's like, boy, you hear some words that you're just like, man, I didn't even know you could put those two words together, or you could attach that word to cloth and get something new. I guess people tell you about your parts so quick. So we definitely need a cultural shift, and that has to come from not just government, but this is whether it's a church, and this is starting our own home. So this is what I'm thinking. We're wrapping up. It is now 2:00. It's been 1 hour. I really appreciate all of your feedback and the ideas. I'm glad that I'm not the only person thinking about this vision thing. Michelle, you really gave a lot. Gregory, thanks as well. And then I need to go and look into what Pansy talked about, this yang, or I can't even pronounce it now, YLANG, for this perfume thing. But I hope I gave you some ideas to think about how we can have Jamaica look different and better in the next 10 years, from 2020 to 2030. I am David Mullings, and I will coordinate for another live show next week. Let's keep this discussion going. Please share any ideas that you have, anything else you want me to read. I love reading, as you can tell, and then I love explaining it to other people in the simplest terms that I can figure out. So thank you so much for this, and we'll save the video in here so you can share it with other people, and hopefully you can have a dining room discussion, a dining table discussion, and pass it on. So Mikey said, this is great. Thanks. See you next week. Everyone, respect everybody. I appreciate this.